I've been doing this 20 years, and I came out of school knowing that the American Heart Association did not have it figured out. They're still the leading cause of, heart disease in this country. They've been around for 100 years. But how do you suck at your job for 100 years and still be in business?
Welcome to Root Cause Holistic Health. I'm Dr. John Harmon, physician, brain health expert, and your host on this no-fluff journey into whole body healing.
And I'm Tracey Green, wellness coach, mom, and co-host in this space where we get real about what actually heals, not just what's trending.
We're here to help you uncover what's really going on and empower you to take the next step in your healing journey.
The show exists to challenge the narratives that don't serve you and to get to the real root. Dr. Harmon, I'm going to hand it over to you. Please introduce today's guest and walk us through why this conversation matters.
All right. Thank you very much, Tracey. Today we have a very special guest. Dr. Chapa is a functional health expert and wellness educator who specializes in cellular nutrition, metabolic health, and longevity. His work focuses on helping individuals identify root causes of chronic symptoms and optimize performance through science-backed holistic strategies. I like the way he dropped in the name of our podcast in his description.
Just for you guys.
I love that. So Dr. Chapa, welcome to the show. We had a little conversation before we started, and I can't wait to hear more of what you have to say, maybe even some of the things we already talked about. I'd like you to take, first of all, how you got to this on this journey and what your passion is about what you do.
Well, for sure. Absolutely. Tracey, Dr. Harmon, I'm just really excited to be a part of the show with you guys, because when we are united, shared goals build unity. And I think when you're one person, one man band, you're out there, you look kind of like crazy. But then when you get a group of people, it turns into a community, and then it becomes a movement. And I think root cause medicine, upstream medicine, transformational medicine is where we are the movers and the shakers, taking people onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. And I just thrilled to be on the show. And yeah, man, I've been doing this 20 years, and I came out of school knowing that the American Heart Association did not have it figured out. They're still the leading cause of, heart disease in this country. They've been around for 100 years. So I always kind of like, poke on them a little bit. But how do you suck at your job for 100 years and still be and still be in business? I mean, if I wasn't getting results and leading the cause of death in the country, I would hope that people would go, that ain't working. What's the old saying that says, if you do the same thing over and over again, what do we call that? Insanity, right? So I think that this really journey began for me at 15 years old. I was 55 pounds overweight, and I was made fun of at junior high level. And you can imagine, as a junior high insecure kid, overweight, and made fun of by two girls, it completely crushed me.
Oh gosh, yes.
And I remember it to the day. I mean, I can still unfortunately hear the echo. I guess I owe them a bit of gratitude, because I built a whole career out of taking care of people and helping people at cellular levels change their trajectory in life. So God used it for good, but that day was troublesome. It was a challenge, and I walked out the back of the school. I went home. I had a conversation with myself in the mirror. I didn't even check out, and I literally just said, "Chop, never again." That's what I used to call myself. People would call me. They'd call me Chop, Chapa, and all this. And I'd say, "Chop, what are we going to do? This is never going to happen again." And I went on a journey right there. I had no education, no doctors in my family, nobody that does this type of work back then. But I just always say, Holy Spirit led, the thing that I could do. I said, what can I do? And it was sugar. I knew I was drinking 6 Cokes a day. That was dumb.
Oh, geez.
I knew I was into 4 and 5 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, throughout the week, and sometimes multiple in a daytime. And on the old Sara Lee white bread and Peter Pan peanut butter and, the Welch's jelly. I mean, sugar, and more sugar, and processed seed oils. If I would have had, my wherewithal, I would have known. But just taking those types of foods out, taking all sugar out of my diet, I didn't have anything sweet in a juice, in a sweet tea, in any type of, fluid intake for 5 years before I ever had anything of wet sugar. And I lost 55 pounds of weight inside of 3.5 months. So much that I had to reintroduce myself to people, and because they thought I was anorexic. I lost so much weight, but I wasn't. I was eating. I was doing fine. And then, you can imagine I had a very different high school experience than I did in junior high. And what life-saving, thing that food offered me, or I like to say today, what you eat's important, but what you don't eat is more important.
I love that.
Those girls did you a favor.
They really did. The best part of that story, just as a quick aside, is one of the girls wanted me to ask her to the prom my senior year, and guess what I got to say?
No.
With an
Anybody who
exclamation
does
point.
that is not my people.
That's right. So I definitely, call it karma, call it, God's grace to give me a little vengeance, I guess. But at the end of the day, to your point, she did. She gave me, it was favor in that I made a lifestyle change. And see, that's where it started. And it started with, I was uneducated. Nobody educated me about it. It was the obvious. What is something, and when we look at root cause work, and we just talked about it a moment ago, we have so many patients, when we ask them to get rid of a sugar out of their diet or some inflammatory food, how do they typically respond in your world?
Shock.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't give up my Mountain Dew.
And then we have to strategically come alongside them and remind them, you can. That's why you came, because the symptom patterns that you were not genetically born with are there because you followed a recipe and you got yourself in this boat. So if we're going to change the game, that's not, one of the first steps is to just evaluate how much sugar do you get into. I had a patient just today. This is her 3rd or 4th visit, dealing with eczema and psoriasis really bad. I mean, really, really bad. And when she looked at her diet, and I started circling and highlighting, not with a red pen, I do it with a blue and green pen because it's less, hardcore. Some people have trauma, PTSD from high school red pens,
Right.
And so we looked at her food log, and it was chalked with bread and rice and cereal and pastas and pastries, and she had no idea that those things convert into sugar. And sugar really is the devil because it causes so much inflammatory responses. I give this, PDF out to my patients, 156 ways that sugar ruins and destroys your health. And that is one of the keys, is education, which is why I love podcasting and being, with other like-minded folk who understand inflammation and what drives it. You know what I mean?
And you mentioned in your email that inflammation is a common denominator in a lot of different things. So if they're consuming a lot of sugar and they're feeding that inflammation, whatever they have gets worse. And how does that play out when you're evaluating someone to try to determine, sure, it's diet, but there can be other things going on as well that cause inflammation.
Yeah, of course. We're just picking on sugar, right? But you and I know you can't pigeonhole one disease into if it was as simple as just getting off sugar, that would be great. But the reality is we have so many patients that come in, for example, with heart disease or with digestive, just simple belly pain. And what happens is we have to just start somewhere. And so how it plays out is we show them, hey, look, these symptoms that you're having, whether it is digestive belly pain, a skin rash, you can't fall asleep at night, you're tossing and turning with bad dreams, you're waking up at night to pee, be, we're helping them understand what they have assumed as normal aging, because their doctors have said, well, that's just what happens as you get older.
Yeah, you're that age now.
Yeah, welcome to the club. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no. If we're wearing out at 30 years old and 40 years old, and if the average American is on, the average 40-year-old is on 5 medications,
Ugh.
we have to ask a just different question and say, look, these symptom patterns you were not genetically born with. And so if genes are an important part of your blueprint, but they do not at all have to be expressed in the negative the way your body is currently showing up. And so what my mission is to get in the boat with you and show you where hidden inflammatory foods come in, whether it and then also help you identify where even bioburdens come in, or even chemicals and metals that are basically polluting and toxifying the body to the point where the body isn't able to keep up. And that bioaccumulated toxic waste now is being stored in a person's brain. Well, now they got brain fog. Now it's being stored in fat cells. Now they're gaining weight or they can't lose weight. Now it's being stored in their joints, and now they've got arthritis, or what I like to call arthrongus, because there's nothing rightous about it. You know what I mean?
I like
That's
that.
good. That's good. I like that too. So you mentioned, people, they think that's normal. Their doctor is telling them it's normal. So a lot of people are moving, to our side of the world. They're looking for functional medicine doctors. They're looking for holistic options because they've been told everything's normal. Your labs look normal. Everything's fine. So in your opinion, when someone says that, when everything looks fine, when clearly there's something going on, why do you think that is?
Well, one, I always tell them, bring me their blood work. Let me look at it. Like, don't tell me, oh, the portal said everything's fine. I want to see the numbers, because to your point, medicine looks at disease, and they look at disease because they treat disease. They can diagnose disease. So recognizing the game they're playing is, if they can't diagnose it, they can't treat it legally on their blood panels. And so if you look at the average person that goes to a doctor, they are typically the sick. And in the hospitals, those lab ranges are built for sick people. We in the functional medicine world, or the people that you're referencing that have slipped through the metaphoric crack of medicine, which they're not diseased enough to show up on blood work yet, they have underlying tighter parameters and patterns that we look for in functional medicine to see where the body's breaking down, and then how we're going to interrupt that process of breakdown into restoration. And so one of the big reasons that they're being told that their thyroid is fine, but they clearly have a thyroid problem, or their liver is not fatty, is because the resilience of the body is to survive. 80% of a person's liver can be destroyed and never show up on a blood panel. That's fascinating, and doctors don't say that. And if the liver is slow and sluggish, even 30%, the thyroid has to slow down 30% to say, man, I just can't, the liver says, I can't keep up with your demands, thyroid. And so the thyroid goes, okay. And then the doctors come in and they whip the thyroid with a drug and demand it to work. And so now you got confusion in the body. That is inflammation. It's confusion. It's a mishap in the rhythms of natural living. And now when we look at the blood parameters and we see a tighter pattern, and we see, okay, the liver enzymes are fine, but we hear all the symptoms, like waking up at night to pee, or they're restless, or they're hot at night, or they have hot flashes or night sweats, and they are waking up multiple times throughout the night just to stare at the ceiling. We go, hey, look, your liver is most active between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. And if you're waking up, which they typically are, staring at the ceiling or getting up to go to the bathroom, that is a classic indicator that their liver is malfunctioning, and it's overheating, which is why they're hot or having night sweats, and their body is crying for help, saying, I can't even do my job during the night, I'm so backed up. And that's when we start asking better questions in conjunction with a blood panel, and we can start seeing, oh, look, their sodium's off. Oh, look, they have other, issues going on, like insulin. A lot of medical doctors don't even read an insulin. They look at a hemoglobin A1C, maybe. We look at the triglycerides, the insulin, the hemoglobin A1C, the sugar. But then we go and look at other factors, look at the white blood cells. Oh my gosh, they don't even have an immune system. The white blood cells are in the toilet. So when functional doctors look at blood work, we see differently through a different lens because we're not treating disease and we're not diagnosing disease. We're looking for patterns of misinformation in the body and miscommunication rather, that is driving that inflammation and filling in the necessary gaps with nutrients. And then we're coming alongside the diet and we're saying, all right, let's make 1 degree of change. That way, if they're doing 6 Mountain Dews a day, okay, can you do 5? Or can you do 4, like baby steps? Like sometimes you don't have to be as aggressive as I was in going completely cold turkey. If you've got that mindset, perfect. But if you're not ready, 1 degree of change plus nutrient intervention gets your mind in the education process that it's your life, your health, your choice, and together we can go onward, upward, goodward, and Godward and see a different outcome for 2026 in this case, or a better next 3 months, a better 6 months, and put you on a trajectory of well-being. It's awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Doc, could you tell the listeners how stress, fear, and unresolved emotional patterns play a role in this?
Oh, 100%. So you and I being in the functional medicine zone and, us understanding we are biostructural beings, we are biochemical beings, and of course we're bioemotional beings. All of those things come together to create the trifecta of who we are spiritually. And so feelings buried alive never die. So that means if you've got old injuries emotionally, PTSD stuff, things from your past, just as one little unit of old emotional junk, your body keeps the score. There's actually a great book called Your Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And your body remembers all those injuries. We do a technique in our office called injury recall technique, and I've had patients that had a broken collarbone when they came out of the womb that we could get the body to see and register. Scars under the chin, and just basic traumas from gosh knows who, all the different things, whiplash injuries and things, and we can get the body to recognize it. And that's again trauma. That's some of the trauma. Well, the same goes with fear. If it's fear, we know that fear, false evidence appearing real, could be a kidney glitch. So organs produce a somato-visceral emotional response. So somato is emotion, visceral is organ response. So kidneys typically are a fear-based issue. Liver's anger, and lungs would be sad. Spleen would be self-deprecation and self-esteem. Intestines would be dogmatic and staunch, and gallbladder would be galt, like I'm holding my ground and resentful. It's very fascinating to see how emotions can get locked into the body. And so if a person grew up in a fear-based ecosystem as their home life, they train their body to ride high adrenaline, ride high cortisol, and oftentimes if they're in those types of environments, no one's coming alongside and reprogramming their endocrine axis, the hypothalamus up here in the brain, pituitary up here in the brain, to communicate down to the diesel engine, your metabolism, your adrenals, your stress management system, and then your gonads, your testes or ovaries, depending on your gender. So that whole system begins to get locked up. So my favorite story of this is I had a patient who was 30 years old when he came to see me. He didn't come in for this issue per se, but his voice never got deeper. He never grew facial hair or chest hair. He essentially, what he would kind of describe as he never really went through puberty that he could recall. So as we were talking him through his history, and we do a timeline history in our office, just kind of getting a feel for who we're working on, because who you were still could be playing on to who you are today. And his dad dropped dead on him outside the hospital on their way to the zoo as a treat because they set him free for the day. He was released from the hospital, and he literally dropped dead outside the hospital holding his dad's hand. Well, a teenager at 13, 14 years old, what are they going through? They're going through puberty. So that emotional hit dented this hypothalamus in the brain. And the hypothalamus is the gatekeeper between your nervous system and your emotional system, your endocrine hormone system. And so that dent was so traumatic, it locked him into a 13-year-old pubescent state where he never made it through. And it wasn't until we got to about him 31 years old, he was with me about 12 months. And throughout that time, we were doing some glandular work because he had tons of, you can imagine, adrenal stress, anxiety, fears that were irrational. Well, they weren't irrational because he has this deep hurt that was never resolved or even identified. And we started stimulating through food. So we actually didn't come in the emotional door. We came in the biochemical door, and we undented. We found some issues with this hypothalamus and pituitary. And literally within 6 months, facial hair came in, chest hair came in, and within 9 months, his voice dropped, his stopped cracking, just an absolute amazing story. And this is feelings buried alive, guys, never die. And that was us going through the biochemical door, not even through the bioemotional door. Now, sometimes people come in through the emotional door, right? You know, they come in with anxiety. We hear that all the time. They do have irrational fears like, I can't go over big bridges. When I hear stuff like that, I get kind of click my heels together because now I never make it sound like it's easy because I don't want people to feel like I'm making light of their situation because they've suffered. I mean, being afraid of heights and driving over bridges keeps people from going on dates, keeps people from traveling, you know, and living life to the fullest. And oftentimes when I see that, I find that it's simple mineral glitches. They have their nervous system is so raw that being up on a bridge and seeing too much, you know, of the world from that height completely overwhelms their nervous system that's already sympathetically driven. That means fight or flight. And then all of a sudden, they don't have the mental brakes, the minerals, to slow down how they process their environment. So I'll come alongside them and feed into the cortisol management down through the adrenal glands. I'll give them a systemic, a systemic meaning full body mineral to calm their nervous system and cool their system down throughout the whole tissue. And then I'll use brain herbs like damiana, saffron, shatavari, different types of skullcap to cool the brain and give it more bandwidth. So I'm tackling some of these hard cases at 3 entry points biochemically to get their body to just stop running so fast. If we can slow down the processing speed so that they're not running off the rails, they will oftentimes realize, this is okay up here. This is actually pretty. And they breathe. And that is a beautiful thing as well, because then people start living life. And there's something to that. Living life through what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we experience. And that is essentially wellness at its finest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body and brain can adapt to different situations instead of being stuck on something like that.
Yeah, the worst anxiety, panic level issue that has come in. Well, I have it too, but one particularly just came in last year. She literally, picture the most beautiful blue sky, sunny day you could imagine. She was my very last patient of the day. And it was, it's just a perfect day. You got Christian music playing in the background. You got smiling faces at the front desk. There's nobody at the front. We're not real crazy busy at the end of this particular day. And she comes in my office and she goes, we get to talking about her case. And she goes, I just want you to understand how real my issue is. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, tell me. And she goes, this is how irrational I am. And I know I'm irrational, but this is where I'm at. So I said, well, G.I. Joe said knowing is half the battle. So if you already know, you're halfway there. But she goes, I think and believe that somebody with a gun is going to come in and shoot your staff. Somebody is going to come in today and shoot you and then turn around and shoot me. Wow. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Now I don't live in a dangerous part of town. It's a beautiful sunny day. There's no reason for a person to feel any angst, not even a little, much less the extreme that she's living in. And it took every bit of about 6 months to reprogram her hormones, but it was genuinely a adrenal, digestive, mineral issue. And when we got into her cells, we started realizing through a couple tests that we do that the essential fatty acids were really depleted. So her cells were raw and they were hot, inflamed, and so her body wasn't able to recalibrate well. The mineral levels were such, calcium, magnesium specifically in this case, her pH was really, really acidic, which you know and I know, all kinds of things, but if acidity is at the base of it, inflammation is at the root of it too. And so finding ways to replete her minerals, calm her adrenals, and repair her gut lining, where I spend a lot of my time with patients, is gut work is so important because if you want a healthy brain, you have to have a healthy gut. And your body makes 3 million more neurotransmitters in the digestive tract than it does have, that it contains in the brain. And what does that mean? That means if you feel crazy here, it's because you're crazy in your gut. Those butterflies are not flying in formation, and you're feeling the imbalance down in the gut lining, and serotonin isn't being regulated, dopamine's not being regulated, your immune system's taxed, your whole system is in that fight or flight zone day in and day out. How well can a person get into a rest and digest state, a healing and repair state, a sleep state when they're running at that level of anxiety and panic?
Yeah, kind of rough.
It makes it very difficult.
Gosh, you said so much in that last part that was so fascinating. And one part that I want to point out is how important food is and what we're eating. You know, the processed food, the bioengineered ingredients. A lot of people don't understand that our food has changed so drastically over the last few years. You know, and the simple just looking at the back of the label and reading now processed with bioengineered ingredients, what that is doing to our gut. And I love that you pointed out the gut and brain correlation, because I don't think people understand what we're eating matters so much to so many different parts of our body, especially our brain. Like the most important part of our body. We need our brain. And I
if the quarterback's broken, he's not making connected passes. That's a problem. And you're 100% right. And if we are seeing, I had a kid come in just recently, and he's got ADD, of course, ADHD, temper tantrums, ODD, whatever the D is that's going around. And essentially, they're feeding him tons and tons of sugar for rewards at school. You can't have peanuts because of anaphylactic shock, but I can poison you with sugar. And you're 100% right, is the gut lining isn't right. I taught a class just last night on cleaning out your pantry and showing people that when you see thiamine mononitrate on your label, that's coal tar B vitamin. That is not a real nutrient your body can use. And you used a really great word, bioengineered food. When you see bioengineered food, you go make-believe food, and then your brain should say make-believe health. Make-believe food always leads to make-believe health. And frankly, this is where food science has really gotten cattywampus, because I teach the CRAP principle. I love this. Your clients and all your listeners will love this. And so I like to use with a roll of the R, CRAP. And it's right. And so it's excessive amounts of refined and enriched carbohydrates. That's the C. Refined ingredients, refined sugars, is the R. Artificial ingredients is the A, and processed ingredients is the P, crap. And if you're eating too much crap, guess what? Garbage in, garbage out. Your body is your best asset. It is a race car. It deserves the best mechanics, the best tires, the best fuel. And if you don't have the right fuel in this earth suit, it will degenerate faster, putting you on the accelerated aging curve, and you will have symptom patterns you weren't genetically born with. Feel like at 30 years old, you'll feel like you're 40. At 40, you'll feel like you're 50. It's always what you do today influences the next 10 years of living. And we have to get people to recognize that what they put in their body matters. and what they don't put in their body matters more.
This bioengineered ingredients is one of my favorite topics, and I want to point out, and I would like to get your point of view on this as well. I don't think our listeners or people in general understand how important it is to understand that they're forever chemicals. We cannot process forever chemicals. So what does that mean? I mean, we have our kidneys, our liver, our appendix. They're not going to be able to function properly if we're not able to process forever chemicals. So like you said, you've got these kids with ADHD, ADD, whatever the D of the month is, with issues. Well, it's a lot of that, if not 99.99%, is all food because they can't process it. And it makes me crazy that these moms don't understand how dangerous bioengineered ingredients are.
And they sneak it in. You could be buying I'll give an example. My wife likes the salsa from Albertsons. We have an Albertsons pretty close to us. And then I thought, well, I'm going to read it because I haven't read the label in a while. And there's no announcement, but now they have bioengineered food. We said, we're not getting that again. But you have to keep reading because it's so sneaky.
Yeah, and these forever chemicals are also in things like your skillets and your cooking utensils. And I remember I'm kind of a science geek. I like animals and things of that nature. And interestingly, I had parakeets, and I read a whole book about how to raise parakeets, and they said in the book that if you use Teflon pans, non-stick cookware, you are running a risk of killing and poisoning your birds. So we've heard the old miners' story of using canaries. They'll send them into a cave, and if the bird doesn't come out, guess what happened? It died. Why did it die? Because of the different gases that are underground. Well, these birds, because of their size, they are essentially, our parakeets are canaries, and so that outgassing, that off-gassing of these forever chemicals from our cooking utensils, not even from the food, yes, the food, but not even from the food always, is literally contaminating the prostate in males, the kidneys in both male and female, making the liver work all the more hard in the system to back up into the lymphatics. And when the backup in the lymphatics happens, the immune system gets really taxed. But people don't realize it. To your point, any stain-resistant fabrics, that's a popular thing, or these fabrics that never wrinkle, firefighting foam, like in your bed sheets, when they tell you that there's flame retardant in the mattress, and you have your face plastered face down into the mattress because you're sleeping poorly and tossing and turning all night looking for a piece of comfort in the night to get some kind of sleep. This bioaccumulated waste that you're sucking in through your sleep cycles is not serving the greater good of your toxic arena. And we have to get these types of things under control. And then you bring up another great point that foods, like I was just looking at this thing about Pringles, like in the way they make Pringles. I mean, it's literally it's Frankenscience. Like
it is.
It is, and people are eating this by the can. One serving is the whole can they're eating, and I'm like, what are you doing? You can't eat the whole can.
But they can. It's easy. I used to tell my patients, if you're eating Pringles and washing it down with a Diet Coke, you're giving yourself a chemical concussion.
Oh, I like that. And that is such great.
You got the
great metaphor.
Yeah, chemically they are. The glutamate, MSG, monosodium glutamate.
Yeah, and it's everywhere, and even in the film, the little material, that thermal paper on your receipts.
Oh yeah.
You grab the receipt paper from the grocery store, from the restaurant. You are essentially putting forever chemicals right into your fingertips and these metabolic downloads. And you go, well, that's not a big deal. But then you put that receipt in your pocket and you go sweat for a couple hours working. And if you're an outdoor work kind of a folk, maybe not in Idaho in the winter, but I don't know. But at the end of the day, what happens is we are being bombarded by lotions and potions. We are being bombarded by smells in our homes, like any smelly candle or plug-in. If we're using direct chemicals, these are deep cellular things that your contaminants your body can handle. But remember, these are bioengineered thing. So your body goes, that's nothing I've ever really seen before. I'm not quite sure how to handle it. And this is the most fascinating thing I think I've really seen in my career is if a person is exposed to some of, like, let's just say aluminum from underarm deodorant. You know, people are still shocks me that they don't know that underarm deodorant is chock full of chemicals. That's what it blocks your antiperspirant cycles. Sweating is normal, guys. And when you don't sweat, where does it go? Into the fat cells. Why do women get breast cancers in the outer upper lobe more often than any other lobe? Because women, like 98% of every underarm deodorant that they grab is always antiperspirant. Food for thought, is blocking up those channels and it gets stored in the fat cells. And the body cannot deal with this well, especially if they have a mineral deficiency. So let's just say aluminum. It takes 4, I'm going to use this, it's hard to like really put this into words, but the simplest analogy I can give you is 1 unit of aluminum requires 4 to 5 units of minerals to neutralize the acidity and to escort it out of the body. So your body's not dumb. It's not going to let rogue contaminants run around wild. And so mercury, if you've got, a dark filling in your mouth, if you have a crown it's quote unquote porcelain, it's got a nickel inlay, you are getting metals even if it's a white crown. The dental is another big place where people are getting bombarded with chemical metal toxicity, but mercury is another one of those big nasty hitters. Aluminum and mercury are huge negatives for the brain, as you mentioned earlier, Tracey, and that brain component, and you lose a boatload of minerals for restoration, regeneration, and calming our nervous system so that it processes the environment well. And so now you got these people running around high anxiety because they don't have the mental breaks to handle it, and it's a perpetuating negative cycle leading you faster and faster to waking up with anxiety, going to bed with anxiety. Somebody says one little thing to you and you fly off the rails. So that is the liver passion or anger or gallbladder resentment factor kicking in, the kidney fear factor kicking in, being saying, I'm overloaded, my somatic visceral response is overloaded, and now I'm having a tantrum. It's an adult controlled tantrum, but nonetheless it's a tantrum.
Wow, I could talk to you all day. I love hearing about your practice and how you think, and we're very like-minded.
Yeah, well, that's why I was so excited to get on the show with you guys, because people really do need to hear the message. And here's what I've also learned is they need to hear it from other sources, because you got your own stories and testimonies, and I've got mine. And I find that weirdly, sometimes people come in and you would think, and I'd think that they'd be ready to change, but hearing it from another professional, they go, yeah, I believe them now. I believe it now, because it's like, what do they call it? Third party validation.
A second witness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what if somebody is listening today and they feel broken? What is some truth you would like them to know?
Well, number one, Christ the King. I know where my help comes from. I am not the healer. I believe truly that, Christ flows up, down, inside out, and I get to come alongside people and remind them it's anything that your body has developed, it can undevelop. So when you feel like you're hopeless and you have tried everything, remember there's still hope. And that reminds me of my favorite Bible verse, Hebrews 10:23. It says, "Let us hold fast our confession of hope without wavering, because the God who has promised is faithful." And so you're not alone. You have help. We live in the information age where it's easy to reach out on any social media platform and find somebody that can lead you to somebody like us in the world of functional medicine, transformational medicine, hacking medicine, and help people at the cellular level, at the root cause, find a new hope that they can grip hold of. And man, I've seen testimonies upon testimonies of people that if they stick to the program and if they follow through the best of their ability and they give it enough time, their body will unravel whatever mess they found themselves. And then that mess, God will use, like he did for me, into a message of hope for others to get on board and take advantage of the your life, your health, your choice principles.
I love that. Take that
too.
mess and turn it into a message.
Yep.
Wow, we're going to end on that. That's a great way to end it. How can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. drchapawellness.com is my website. I have my podcast links up there, my social media links up there. I'm on every social media platform that most people are using. And man, anytime I can be a guest on podcast, I'm on Spotify and YouTube and all those fun places, and just sharing my message each and every day, each and every week, and trying to teach people how to live better, be better, stay better. It's good stuff.
And Doc, it was a great message. Thank you very much.
Praise God. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you both.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Together, we are going to get this movement going for holistic health and getting to the root cause.
I believe you guys, and that's why, again, I'm just thankful to be a part of the unit with y'all. So together, we'll move this boat forward fast.
That's incredible. Thank you. And thank you, friends, for listening today. Stay grateful, stay grounded. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Root Cause Holistic Health. We're here to help you uncover what's really going on and empower you to take the next step in your healing journey.
Whether you're a mom, a dad, or just someone ready to stop settling for Band-Aid fixes, we hope today's episode gave you something to think about.
If you found this episode valuable, do us a favor, share it with someone you love, and leave a review so we can reach more families like yours.
Make sure to hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode. We've got more honest conversations, practical tips, and root cause wisdom coming your way.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and most of all, stay connected to what truly matters.
We'll see you next time on Root Cause Holistic Health.